Around the year 625, in the household of a Tang official, a fortune teller was shown a baby, a small child, still in swaddling clothes. He was the most famous face reader of the age, a man people believed could see a person's entire fate written in their face. The baby had been dressed, as infants sometimes were, as a little boy. He leaned in, and he went still. "Dragon eyes," he said, "a phoenix's neck. This child will rule the world." Then they told him the truth. It was a girl. And he said something that in 3,000 years of Chinese history had never once come true. "A girl? Then she will rule as the son of heaven himself, as emperor." They laughed it off. No woman had ever sat on the dragon throne. No woman ever could. At 14, that girl did enter the palace, but only as one of Emperor Taizong's lowest-ranking concubines, nowhere near any kind of power. But the gears of her fate had already begun to turn. And now let me tell you how that impossible prophecy came true. This is the Tang at its dawn, the most powerful empire on earth, founded by one emperor and forged into its golden age by his son, the man history would crown its greatest, Emperor Taizong. He had taken the throne in blood at a gate called Xuanwu and turned that blood into a golden age. In the year 637, the girl from the prophecy was 14, and a name was added to that emperor's harem. The daughter of a timber merchant who had risen to become one of the dynasty's founding nobles. Beautiful enough that the court gave her a title, Talented Lady, and a name, Wu Mei, the charming Wu. It sounds like a promotion. It was a rank near the bottom, one of dozens of women who existed to be available and otherwise unseen. But there is one story from those years, told decades later by the woman herself, and it tells you everything. The emperor had a stallion no one could break, a vicious horse called Lion Stallion. Even his own grooms had given up on it. And then a 14-year-old concubine, a girl no one had ever heard speak, stepped out of the crowd and said, "Let me. I can break it. Give me 3 things. An iron whip, a heavy iron rod, and a dagger. I'll whip it. If it won't submit, I'll smash its skull with the rod. And if it still won't submit, I'll cut its throat with the dagger." Taizong was impressed. He praised the girl's nerve. A fierce little thing, he thought. A willful, fearless brat. And that was all he saw. The sharpest reader of men in China looked straight at that girl and never once imagined he was looking at the gravedigger of his own dynasty. Years later, a prophecy even named her. A woman of the surname Wu, it said, would seize power over the realm and wipe out the house of Li. It terrified the emperor. He fixed on a general whose nickname happened to be Wu Daughter. A man who even guarded the Xuanwu gate had him executed and seized his house. But he had killed the wrong man. Afterward, he summoned his chief astrologer and asked, "Should I hunt down every other suspect?" The answer froze his blood. "She is already inside your palace," the astrologer said. "This is the will of heaven, you cannot undo it. Kill more, and you will only butcher the innocent." So Taizong stopped. The real one sat untouched in his own harem the entire time, and to the day he died, Taizong never once connected that low-ranking concubine to the prophecy. In 649, Taizong died, and the custom was merciless. An emperor's childless women did not go home. They went to a temple, heads shaved, to pray for his soul. At 25, Wu Mei was a nun behind those walls. Her story should have ended there. It didn't. Because of one thing the old emperor never knew. By some accounts, his son had wanted her since he was still the crown prince. The new emperor, Gaozong, Taizong's 9th son, came to that temple to burn incense for his dead father. And there, among the shaven nuns, He found his father's woman, and he wanted her back. The son, taking the father's concubine, by the morals of the age, it was a scandal that could rot a dynasty. They did it anyway. In 651, the nun's hair had grown back, and she walked in through the palace gates. This time, she would not go unseen. She bore the emperor's sons. She climbed. And between her and the throne stood one woman, the Empress Wang, who had no son at all. Then the empress was handed the cruelest accusation imaginable. Wu's newborn daughter, a baby girl, only weeks old, was found dead in her crib. The Empress Wang had been the last to hold her, and some later histories say Wu killed her own daughter to frame Empress Wang. But the truth of what happened in that cradle, only she herself would ever know. In 655, the emperor deposed Empress Wang. Days later, Wu Mei was crowned in her place, Empress of the Tang. And then the new empress did something that told the whole court who she was. The two women she had beaten, the deposed empress and a rival consort, were still alive, locked in a back palace. By the most savage version the histories preserved, she had their hands and feet cut off and their bodies dropped into great jars of wine. "Let these two hags," she said, "get drunk to the bone." But as consort Xiao was dragged to the jars, she turned and screamed a curse the histories never forgot. "In my next life, let me be born a cat, and let Wu be a rat, and I will rip out her throat, lifetime after lifetime." And it haunted her. The most feared woman in China was so shaken that from then on no cat was kept inside the palace. But no one doubts what came next, because next she went after the men who built the Golden Age. When she rose, the old guard had warned the emperor against her. The most powerful of them was his uncle, Zhang Sun Wuji. Remember that name? He was one of the masterminds of the ambush at Xuanwu Gate, the right hand who helped put Taizong on the throne, the dying emperor's chosen regent. In 659, he was accused of plotting treason. The charge was manufactured, everyone knew it. He was stripped of everything, exiled to the far southwest, and there the architect of the Tang's golden age was forced to hang himself. The girl Taizong had overlooked had just destroyed the man he trusted with his whole dynasty. The blood of Xuanwu Gate was eating the house it built, and it was as if the curse of the old emperor, the one his own son had forced off this very throne, was beginning to crawl out of the shadows. After that, the cost of opposing her was something everyone had seen, and the emperor's body was failing him. Gaozong was struck by what the histories called the wind sickness, blinding headaches, a world that spun and went dark. So the documents of the empire were carried to the one mind he trusted to read them. Hers. She read, she decided, she ruled from behind a screen, in his name. In time, the court stopped speaking of one ruler. Emperor and empress together, they called them the two sages. In 683, Gaozong died, and the curtain came down. Her own son took the throne. He lasted weeks until he proposed handing real power to his wife's father. His mother deposed him in a single morning, put her youngest son on the throne instead, kept in a side hall, allowed no part in ruling. She no longer ruled through a husband, now she ruled through a son she could switch out like a lamp. And in 684, a rebellion rose against her in the south. One of the great poets of the age wrote its manifesto, a public call to arms that tore her apart, line by venomous line. They read it to her at court, expecting rage. She listened to the brilliant, savage prose, and when it ended, she did not call for his head. She asked who wrote it. And then she said, "A talent like this left unemployed, that is the Prime Minister's failure." That was the mind they were dealing with. She sent 300,000 troops and crushed the rebellion, and admired her enemy's penmanship while she did it. Then she made sure there would never be another manifesto. She set a bronze box in the courtyard of the court. Any subject, however lowly, could drop a secret accusation inside, against anyone, even the highest lord in the land. And she hired men to act on what fell in. History remembers them by a single word: the cruel clerks. Together they produced a manual, a method for weaving an innocent man into a traitor charge by fabricated charge. The classic of entrapment. Confess, and you died. Refuse, and their methods made you beg to confess. One of them was drinking with another and asked, idly, "What do you do with a prisoner who won't confess?" "Simple," the other said. "You seal him in a great jar and light a fire all around it." "Wonderful," said the first, and gestured to a jar already heating in the room. "There is a charge against you, brother, so please, step into the jar." For over a decade the empire informed on itself. Neighbor turned on neighbor. The court learned to be silent, and in that silence she made her move. For 3,000 years the rule had never broken. The Son of Heaven was a son, a man. A woman could be the power behind the throne. She could rule the world from behind a curtain, but she could not sit on it, not in her own name, not as emperor. In the year 690, Wu Mei broke the rule. She did not rule for the Tang. She ended it, abolished the dynasty's name, and founded her own, the Zhou. Years before, she had already moved the empire's heart east to Luoyang and renamed it the Divine Capital. And there she had raised a colossal hall of worship, the Ming Tang, a monument so vast it announced that heaven itself was changing hands. She even had new characters created and took a new name from one of them, a sun and a moon together over the open sky. Zhao, light, reigning over all the world below. She was 66, and she had done what no woman in Chinese history had done before her, and none would ever do again, to rule the empire as its lawful, reigning emperor. She sat on the dragon throne, not as a wife, not as a mother, as the Emperor of China. The 14-year-old at the bottom of a dead man's harem now held the entire world in her hand. And here is the thing no one expects. She was good at it. She broke the old aristocracy's grip on power and widened the civil service exams to talent from nowhere. She picked sharp ministers and mostly let them work. The empire she stole did not crack, it ran. Some of her years were as well governed as the golden age that came before. But an emperor grows old, and the old empress grew reckless. She took lovers and let them swagger through a court of men who could say nothing. At the end, 2 pretty brothers controlled her inner court, and through it, much of the court itself. The most dangerous men in China were the ones in her bed, and one question hung over all of it: the empty throne to come. Who would she leave it to? Her own sons, sons of the Tang she had destroyed, or her nephews, men of her own Zhou? Her wisest minister gave her the answer she could not get around. "A son," he said, "will enshrine his mother in the imperial temple and honor her for 10,000 years. But a nephew? Have you ever heard of a nephew who became emperor and set up an altar to his aunt?" And then there was the dream. She dreamed of a great parrot, its 2 wings broken, unable to fly. The same minister read it back to her. "The parrot, Wu, is your own surname. The 2 broken wings are your 2 sons. Lift them up, and the wings mend. Leave them, and you never fly again." She had spent her whole life seizing power, but she could not seize what came after death. So the woman who had erased the Tang quietly called her exiled son home and named him her heir. With one decision, she pointed the throne back at the very house she had spent decades tearing down. She didn't get to finish it on her own terms. In 705, she was old and sick, and the brothers had made too many enemies. Her ministers struck. Palace troops poured into the inner court, cut down the two favorites, and the conspirators demanded she step down. The army and the ministers had already gone over to her son. She had nothing left to fight with. She gave up the throne, and the Tang she had abolished came back, though the 15 years she had ruled had changed it forever. Months later she died, around 81 years old. In her last will, she gave up the title she had bled for. "Take away my emperor's name," she ordered. "Call me empress. Bury me beside my husband." And here is something you may not realize. The name the whole world remembers her by, Wu Zetian, she never once heard in her life. As a girl she was Wu Mei, the charming Wu. As emperor she had named herself Zhao. Zetian was an honor pinned on her only after she was gone, the one who took heaven as her measure. Even her name in the end was something history decided for her. And in front of her tomb they raised a 20-foot stone, the one that should have carried her story. She had been a concubine, a nun, an empress, a tyrant, a sacred emperor, and at the very end, a wife again. She had killed for the throne, ruled it better than most men who ever held it, and pointed it back at her enemy's house before she died. No inscription could hold a life like that. So the stone stayed empty. She left no words on her tomb, but she had already left a face. As empress, she had poured a fortune into a colossal Buddha at Longmen, 17 meters tall, and they say its serene, faintly smiling face was shaped after her own. 1,300 years later, it is still there, still smiling down. So what was she, really? A monster who murdered her way to the throne, or simply the greatest ruler China ever had, who happened to be a woman? 1,300 years on, we still can't agree. So this time, you decide. Tell us in the comments. Welcome to the Dragon Files. Subscribe for more.